Have you ever seen sister wives and thought that something just didn't add up? You're not alone. Underneath the smiles, the family dinners, and the tightly edited confessions, there's a sordid reality the cameras never reveal. A reality that is all about emotional manipulation, gaslighting, and one woman's silent struggle to take her identity back. We've witnessed the way Cody Brown flaunts his so-called leadership, how Robyn is set up as the loving glue that keeps the family intact. But what if I told you the true story is far removed from what TLC wishes us to believe? What if beneath that glossy TV narrative, there's a fundamentally broken dynamic, one in which Meri Brown, the initial wife, has been systematically omitted, emotionally abandoned, and continuously silenced? This isn't just about jealousy or failed relationships. This is about a woman who has spent years trapped in a structure that devalues her, a network that glosses over her pain, and a husband who uses love as a weapon, picking favorites, punishing honesty, and manipulating the truth to protect his image. In this video, we're not just talking about sister wives as entertainment. We're breaking down the emotional warfare happening behind the scenes, from Cody's gaslighting and Robyn's subtle guilt tactics to TLC's choice to look the other way. We're exposing the truth about what's really going on in this family. And trust me, you're going to want to see how deep this dysfunction runs. So grab a seat, because we're pulling back the curtain on the real story the show won't tell you. This isn't just drama, it's damage. And it's time someone said it out loud. Welcome back to the channel, guys! Before we dive right in on today's subject, please be sure to hit that subscribe button, like this video, and leave your comments below. I want to know, do you feel that TLC is overlooking the darker aspects of the Brown family dynamic? Let's get into this. If you're a viewer of Sister Wives, you recognize Cody Brown as the so-called patriarch, with his 4 wives in tow: Meri, Janelle, Christine, and Robyn. But let's be honest, although the whole family is the focal point of the show, it's Cody and Robyn who tend to steal the show. And if you've been watching closely, you'll know that their relationship has always been at the core of the drama. From the moment Robyn joined the family, their connection became undeniable. Cody's affection for Robyn is clear as day. She's his favorite, his one true love. Meanwhile, the other wives, especially Meri, often seem like they're left out in the cold, excluded from the bond that Cody shares with Robyn. It's clear, this is no ordinary polygamous family. But here's the thing TLC doesn't want you to know. While the network is certainly airing the drama, they're omitting something a lot darker: the emotional manipulation that Cody and Robyn exercise, almost as weapons. Robyn's sweetness and calm demeanor may give her the appearance of being the victim, but don't be deceived. She's equally guilty of alienating the other wives, especially Meri. And then there's Cody. He keeps flip-flopping between the wronged husband and the traditional gaslighter. His affection for Robyn? No surprise there. But the manner in which he exploits her to control the others? That's something TLC conveniently glosses over. This is not merely a matter of the odd, angry exchange. Their emotional abuse is subtle, insidious, and eventually it will wear them down. So why doesn't TLC reveal to us the actual effect of all this? Yes, polygamy in itself is a controversial topic, but what about the cost to their emotional well-being that it exacts from these women? The cost to their mental health, their self-esteem, their independence? That's what gets hidden under the table. And here's the million-dollar question: why is the emotional abuse, particularly in the case of Meri, always in the background? Why does TLC emphasize the drama, but avoid telling how deep the pain really is? Wait, because we're about to reveal what TLC is not saying and why that's important more than you realize. For years, Meri Brown has been characterized as the wife who just takes it. From Cody's selfish favoritism of Robyn to the ever-present emotional roller coaster that is polygamy, Meri has so often seemed trapped in an infinite loop of self-sacrifice, guilt, and emotional manipulation. But something has changed. Has anyone else noticed? We've seen over time, as Meri has transitioned into a silent but deep transformation. She's no longer the woman who quietly endures the abuse. In reality, she's just beginning to assert boundaries, stand up for herself, and maybe most critically, stop letting Cody and Robyn guilt-trip her anymore. An important turning point for Meri was when she outright denied Cody's sorrow when their family went through a tough situation. Now, for those who know Meri, you'll remember that she usually plays the emotional caretaker role, always trying to fix things, console Cody, and carry the emotional weight of the situation. But this time, not anymore. She saw through the manipulation. Cody, ever the master of guilt, tried to pull on her heartstrings, expecting her to absorb his pain and serve as his emotional support. But Meri? At that point, she did something absolutely amazing. She established a boundary, and she didn't buy it. Here's where the actual problem comes in. When Meri does this, when she takes charge of her emotional health and refuses to just continue bearing the burden, she's immediately declared cold, or icy, by both Cody and even the show. Instead of recognizing her assertiveness for what it really is, self-respect and personal empowerment, TLC frames it as something negative, like there's something wrong with her for finally saying enough is enough. So let me ask you, why is it that when Meri says, "I'm not carrying this burden anymore," she's portrayed as the villain? Why is her refusal to continue enabling Cody's manipulative behavior seen as harsh, when in reality, it's the first time we've truly seen her take control of her own emotional well-being? Meri's evolution isn't something that can be captured in a single soundbite or montage on a reality show. It's much deeper than that. And yet, it's still overlooked. But the real question is, why? Why is her strength portrayed as a bad thing rather than something to be admired? Hang in there, because the reality of Meri's journey is one you don't want to miss. Meri's transformation hasn't happened overnight or without effort. It's been a slow, agonizing unlearning of years of emotional programming and manipulation. Each time she stands up to Cody's guilt trips, she's claiming a little more of herself. These flashes of pushback, whether subtle or not, are gestures of bravery, each one leading to further emotional emancipation. Still, with this subtlety of power, TLC doesn't accord her much or any credit. Instead of accentuating her own process of change, the show just keeps portraying her as the cold wife, the one who won't fit the mold, who pushes back against the malignant dynamic Cody and Robyn have so deliberately created. But if you're paying close attention, you'll see it clearly. Meri isn't cold. She's finally warming up to her own power. She's found her voice, and she's learning how to use it. Now, let's dig deeper into the manipulation, because when it comes to Cody and Robyn Brown, it's nothing short of a masterclass in emotional abuse. Cody in particular has perfected the art of love bombing. When he wants something from Meri, loyalty, attention, or control, he suddenly becomes sweet, attentive, even charming. It's manipulative. He treats Meri like she's special, important, like she's finally being heard and understood, but never really is. It's a temporary illusion created to reel her back under his control. These manipulative maneuvers are most apparent in times of emotional tension, such as the tell-all episodes. That's when Cody unleashes the full-on charm, showering Meri with compliments or playing the victim by acting like she's the one who's been hurt. It's an over-the-top, melodramatic display of affection that appears genuine, but that's the bait. That's what love bombing is. It's meant to disorient and unsettle the person being deceived. One minute, Cody's cold and aloof. The next, he's playing the role of the perfect couple. The whiplash is deliberate. It gives her a false sense of connection and holds her emotionally bound to him. But it's not love. It's control. And it's not just Cody who plays these games. Robyn's are more insidious, but just as hurtful. She never raises her voice or makes a big production about it. She simply uses guilt as a scalpel, silent, sharp, and sharply cutting. Robyn has mastered how to use Meri's loyalty against her, making her sense of duty a trap. She knows precisely how to make Meri feel guilty. If Meri draws a boundary, she's selfish. If she refuses Cody's manipulation, she's cold. Robyn's whole modus operandi is constructed around getting Meri to doubt herself, so that she falls back into line over and over again. And here's the tough reality. All this emotional manipulation is not mere relationship dysfunction. It's abuse. And TLC, they're hardly scratching the surface. Stick with us, because what comes next is where things get even more revealing. Robyn does have a very manipulative tactic she plays that's difficult to overlook, the family first card. She has a way of tugging at the strings, so to speak, of Meri's vulnerability. Whenever Robyn's feelings are high, particularly when things go wrong between her and Cody, she has no compunction about turning a situation around to suit herself. She paints herself as a victim, one who must be taken care of, protected, while hinted but unsubtly, suggesting that Meri is not doing her share to hold the family together. It's as if Robyn is playing a psychological game, causing Meri to feel like an outsider, as though she's the one disrupting the supposed harmony Cody and Robyn are going to so hard to forge. And what's worse, TLC never addresses this behavior. Rather than depicting the manipulation, the show gives us Cody and Robyn as the loving, misjudged couple, a couple who are only trying to get by while the others get in their way. It's as if the lens of the camera becomes soft focus when dealing with their relationship, protecting them from the true questioning they deserve. Anytime Meri condemns Cody's actions or doesn't play ball with their manipulative schemes, guess what occurs? She's villainized. She's the problem. Instead of confronting the emotional manipulation this causes to the other wives, the show turns it around to present Meri as the bad apple. Cody and Robyn, they're given a free pass. It's infuriating because we, the audience, know the manipulation is occurring. But TLC, they won't own up to it. All the gaslighting, guilt-tripping, and emotional manipulation, it's all glossed over so the picture-perfect family illusion can be continued. So, we're left asking, why isn't anyone holding Cody and Robyn accountable? Undefined. Why is Meri the one who has to bear the emotional weight, while Cody and Robyn get to play the part of the misunderstood couple? Undefined. The silence from TLC is deafening, and it leaves one crucial question. Who's really being protected here? Undefined? Is it the family as a whole, or the manipulative duo at the top? Now, let's discuss TLC for a second, because this is where things get even more infuriating. With all the blatant emotional manipulation, toxic behavior, and manipulative strategies from Cody and Robyn, how is it that the network keeps sweeping it under the rug? It's as if TLC is in on maintaining this fairy tale facade of the family, a nicely polished veneer that glosses over the ugly realities behind closed doors. Consider Suki, for instance. She's the one who's meant to push the Browns to confront the tough stuff, isn't she? But all she ever seems to do is gently prod the Browns to discuss their emotions, cushioning the blows of the actual issues. Where's the responsibility? Why isn't everybody calling Cody out for this action? Why aren't we hearing the tough questions being asked about how his actions have affected Meri, Janelle, and Christine emotionally? The absence of accountability by TLC is really staggering, and it gives a great many questions regarding what's actually happening behind the scenes. It's difficult not to note how Cody controls his wives, or how Robyn's methods are so evident, yet still manage to go undetected. Seeing this happen is infuriating, because as a television viewer, you can't help but hope for a confrontation, a scene in which Cody and Robyn are brought to answer for the emotional devastation they leave in their wake. But what actually happens is that the show ties it all together in a bow and presents them as merely misunderstood, or simply a couple having a bad patch. There's this infuriating feeling of complacency from the network. TLC can get the truth out, reveal the actual harm done by polygamy and manipulation. But rather than addressing these points directly, they're more interested in upholding the family-friendly image and generating drama to drive ratings. TLC never forces Cody and Robyn to take responsibility for their actions. Actually, they enable them to spin the story, make themselves out to be victims of it all. The absence of aggressive questioning, either from Suki or the network in general, demonstrates a total lack of concern for damage that has been inflicted on the other wives, especially Meri, Janelle, and Christine. And come on, this silence only serves to further facilitate their actions. Why isn't anyone holding them responsible? Why is the show more concerned about maintaining the peace than actually revealing the true issues that are at stake? It seems like a deliberate refusal of the truth for the benefit of ratings. The network's silence is deafening and makes us question how far they will go to defend a narrative rather than an actual, honest discussion. Now, let's get to Meri's case because it's been a painful and lengthy journey. If we truly step back and examine the history, it's obvious her emotional cost has been growing for years before she finally established those boundaries with Cody and Robyn. Recall those first few seasons when the cracks in the family structure began to appear? You could look at Meri's face, the unhappiness about her place in the family, and it was growing increasingly painful to watch. The psychic toll of being in a marriage where she no longer had the top spot on Cody's priority list became impossible to deny. But it wasn't only the tension between Cody and the other wives that made it so apparent. It was the way that Meri was being handled, as a supporting character in her own marriage. As much as Cody was obviously more emotionally involved with people like Robyn and others, Meri appeared to recede into the background, left to bear the emotional brunt of it all. The effect on her wasn't merely about feeling ignored. It was a profound emotional ignoring that existed for years. Meri was by herself, and no wonder she was so miserable. She was stuck in a poisonous dynamic that kept her in a vicious cycle of guilt and self-doubt. But if you believe her problems started there, you're mistaken. Let's discuss the so-called catfishing scandal, because that was nothing short of a wake-up call for Meri. This was the ultimate betrayal. Not only had she been emotionally tormented in her marriage, but now her private agony was splashed on tabloids for all to read. The affair laid bare her vulnerabilities and made plain just how emotionally neglected she had been. Her emotional breakdown there wasn't an isolated event. It was a direct consequence of years of emotional manipulation. And what did Cody do? He manipulated the situation to get out of it. Instead of accepting his part in the breakdown of their marriage, he distorted the facts, portraying Meri as the culprit, or so she thought. Rather than own up to his own lack of attention, he let Meri take the fall for it all. Then there's Robyn, who jumped into the fray right away, isolating Meri further and placing even more emotional burden on her already strained shoulders. It was an emotional minefield that Meri couldn't have avoided. But here's the thing. This wasn't an isolated event. Meri's guilt and manipulation battles were long-term, smoldering under the surface for years. Every time she attempted to speak out, every time she attempted to establish a boundary, it was ignored or distorted. Her emotional process has been one of survival within a space that constantly gaslights her. And yet, in spite of all that, the show never fully acknowledges the burden of what Meri has experienced. Rather, we're supposed to accept that this relentless manipulation is simply business as usual in a polygamous marriage. But for Meri, it's never been an option. Her experience in the Brown family has not been easy by any stretch. And if you actually take time to examine the history, you'll find that Meri's been subjected to emotional manipulation and neglect for many years. The cracks in her marriage to Cody were evident long before she ever established a single boundary. There were warning signs early on that she wasn't satisfied with her position within the family. And really, who could blame her? Meri had trouble from the start playing her role within the family. She was the first wife, and it was miserably obvious that she was no longer Cody's primary priority. As the household expanded, it appeared as though her value decreased, with Cody investing more energy into his relationships with the younger wives, most particularly Robyn. It wasn't about the love triangle alone. Meri was always in a situation where she was fighting to be loved, noticed, and emotionally connected. Every time she attempted to voice her discontent or assert herself, she was dismissed. This made her feel further isolated and disregarded. You could literally see the anger brewing in her eyes throughout the years as she silently bore the burden of being pushed aside. But maybe the most crucial point in Meri's long-standing battle was with the notorious catfishing scandal. That incident destroyed any form of trust or stability in her marriage with Cody. The emotional impact it had on her was colossal. She had already been emotionally neglected for years, and now she was humiliated before the whole world. Rather than being there to offer support, Cody cared more about the repercussions for himself, his image, than for Meri's suffering. Let's not forget Robyn's role in this. As Meri was dealing with the emotional crisis, Robyn jumped right in, assuming the role of the concerned friend, while Meri was forced to deal with the aftermath on her own. The catfishing scandal was no one-time mistake. It was the end result of years of emotional abuse and manipulation. But rather than receive the support she deserved, Meri was made to be the bad guy in her own drama. Her guilt, shame, and self-doubt were manipulated against her, not only by Cody, but by everyone. Despite being obviously manipulated, nobody really spoke up against the toxic dynamics that were playing out. In fact, the show glazed over all of it, as if this sort of emotional abuse was just par for the course in polygamous marriage. The ugly reality is that Meri's tale isn't an unusual one. It's part of an enormously bigger and deeply disturbing pattern of emotional and psychological damage that many wives in polygamous unions undergo. The Brown family dynamics may look extreme on the surface, but they're not so different from the realities of hundreds of women in such situations. When polygamy is being portrayed as something glamorous or serene, It's easy to lose sight of the tremendous emotional cost that it exacts from those who are repeatedly being asked to share their husband, not only physically, but emotionally as well. For women such as Meri, it's a toll that can feel too much to handle. It's not merely that they feel ignored or neglected by their partner, it's the deliberate emotional manipulation, guilt trips, and pervasive feeling that their needs are always secondary to everyone else's. In polygamous households, where the dynamics are usually skewed in favor of the husband, the women are left isolated, invisible, and voiceless. Imagine living with the emotional toll of being in this constant competition for love, approval, and attention. It drains you, and over time, it annihilates your self-esteem. Meri's story isn't merely about Meri and Cody. It's a reflection of how so many women struggle in polygamous systems. And it doesn't end at the emotional cost. The psychological harm can be lasting. It instills a feeling of insecurity, low self-esteem, and a lack of ability to establish healthy boundaries. When the basis of the relationship is founded on emotional manipulation and guilt, it becomes near impossible for any woman to ever flourish. The actual tragedy in this situation is the way TLC paints over the difficulties. The network can reveal the real consequences of polygamy, but what they do instead is keep things surface level, not having even a glance at the deep emotional scarring that women such as Meri experience. If the show really cared about doing what's best for its audience, it would reveal the true cost of polygamy and end the idealization of a lifestyle that inflicts so much damage upon the women involved in it. As we conclude this, it's obvious that the Brown family dynamics are much more toxic and harmful than TLC is willing to allow. Cody and Robyn's emotional manipulation, particularly on Meri, isn't a subplot. It's the uncomfortable truth of what occurs when someone attempts to dominate another. But the network won't call them out on it. Why does TLC keep putting them on a pedestal? Why do they let Cody and Robyn off the hook each time their actions cross a boundary? And why is Meri, a woman finally standing up for herself, still called cold or icy, rather than being given accolades for having taken back her power? I'm curious to know what you think. Do you believe TLC is suppressing the truth? Undefined. Why is everyone so quiet about the actual damage polygamy does, particularly to women like Meri? Undefined. Let me know in the comments below. And don't forget, if you want more real opinions on sister wives, deeper explorations of the toxic dynamics behind the scenes, and the truth you won't hear anywhere else, make sure to like, comment, and hit that subscribe button.